like 81% or 83%. It's not 82%. So it could be anything else, just not 82%. Okay. Why don't you try B right now? So pause the video and give it a shot. I'm going to go ahead and do it myself so that you can check and see if you got the right answer. So pause, pause, pause. Okay, so I'm assuming that you did it. And it says here that the mean, that's mu, flow rate is less than. Less than does not have an equals to in it, so I'm going to write it over here. Mu is less than 2.5. That's the claim. And over here, mu is greater than or equal to 2.5. So they claim that it's less than 2.5, and the opposite of that is that it's greater than or equal to 2.5. So notice that the claim is the alternative on this one, and the claim is the null on that one. And we'll be using this in 7.2, this process with a null and alternative, to do hypothesis tests. Okay, now there's two types of errors that can occur when you're hypothesis testing. And the first one is a type 1 error, and that is if the null hypothesis is rejected when it's actually true. So this means that you have a null hypothesis and your process, your experiment, your whatever, you end up rejecting it. You say, nope, the null hypothesis is wrong, but in actuality, it's actually true. And it's not that you did the math wrong, it's that you got a weird enough sample that you believe it's true. And we'll talk about examples of this in a minute. A type 2 error is if the null hypothesis is accepted. When it's actually false. So again, you accepted the null hypothesis, not the claim, by the way, the null hypothesis. You accept the null hypothesis, but then it turns out that in actuality that it's false and that you just got a weird sample. You did your math right, but you got a weird sample, so you basically, these are the two ways you could mess up a hypothesis test. And this isn't your fault. This is still doing the math right. It's just possible that you could make an error because we can't always be 100% confident about our results. We could have a weird sample that skews the results. A good example of this is done with testing for marijuana in people's systems. So when they're drug testing for marijuana. So let's draw a picture or a chart. You're going to make two of these that look like this. If you need to pause the video so you can do it, go ahead. Looks like this, both of them. All right, I'm going to write reality on the top here. And the test says over here, this is positive, negative, positive, negative. Okay. So on this test, the H sub O is that the patient is using marijuana. So they have marijuana in their system. And the alternative to that is that the patient isn't using marijuana. So let's say that you take it, or not you, but somebody takes a test to find out if, like, they give a test to an employee, a potential employee, to see if they've been using marijuana. So if the test says that they are positive for THC in their system, then that means if it says that they're positive, the test says that it's positive, and in reality, they should have been positive because they were using marijuana. That's a good test. That means that the test shows that it's positive, and truly they had been using marijuana. Your test works. It shows that they're positive when they're positive. Opposite of that is the test says, no, they don't have any THC in their system. They have not been using marijuana. And in reality, that's true. The patient has not been using any kind of marijuana, which means that they are negative on the test and negative in reality. Now, these two spots are the problem. If the test says that you're positive for having THC in your system, but in reality, you have never used marijuana, then that is called a false positive. They also have these with COVID tests. By the way, the rate of getting a false positive when you are taking a test, like a drug test, is about 3%, at least for marijuana. So there's a 3% chance that if you do not use marijuana and you take a test, that you could still test positive. But the nice news about that is that the chances of you getting 2 false positives in a row are very low. That would be equal to 3% times 3%, which is now, let's see, 0.0009. So if you're ever in a position where you get drug tested or something like that and you believe that you've gotten a false positive, ask to take the test again. They can't deny it, and the chances that you'll get 2 false positives in a row are almost impossible. Now, let's say that the test says that you're negative. So the test says, nope, they've got nothing in their system. But in reality, you have been using marijuana, or the patient has been using marijuana. Then that's called a false negative. That means that the test incorrectly is saying that you are negative for THC in your system. The chances of that happening are less than 1%, at least for marijuana tests, which is interesting because this one is higher. This being a false answer is a problem for the consumer or the person who is applying for a job. In this case, they would probably be refused when they shouldn't be. And this one is bad for the company. That means that they're accepting an employee, if that's their rules with their company, that they're accepting an employee who's using drugs when they do not want that. And then that is less than 1%. Usually we try to make this one less than this one because usually these tests are created for companies or the ones that are buying it, and this is the number that the companies care about, not so much this. So this is the idea of a type 1 and type 2 error. So here is, now I'm going to show you, like with any hypothesis test, how this applies. Okay, so we're talking about H sub O. Just in case you can't read my writing, that says H sub O is actually true, H sub O is actually false. This one says accept H sub O, and this one says reject H sub O. All right, remember, H sub O is the null hypothesis. So let's say that you say, I accept the null hypothesis, and in reality, the null hypothesis is actually true. Great, your hypothesis test worked. And if you reject the null hypothesis and the hypothesis is truly false, congratulations, it worked. This one, if you reject it, but it was actually true, this is called a type 1 error.